Good evening. I'm your host, Birdtendo, and welcome back to Evenly Read. 2 more days until this series is done for. But who knows? I might bring it back for a couple other special stories. We'll see. So, I hope your holiday is going pretty well. Hope you're enjoying the previous stories I've told so far. Because we got another iconic story. You may have seen her on Inside the Workshop Episode 2, and the pilot for that matter. But she also has her own little book story, which I thought was pretty good, and I've seen the movie as well. Tonight, we're going to be reading Olive the Other Reindeer. Oh yes, Olive the Other Reindeer. Now, where have I heard that phrase before? Well, let's read. Do kick back and turn off the tunes for a while. This book came out in 1997, which is pretty cool. Olive the Other Reindeer by Vivian Walsh and J. Otto Seibold. Illustrated by J. Otto Seibold. He's a great illustrator. Here we go. Every day, Olive took her daily dog walk. Winter, spring, summer, or fall. Today was a winter's day. It was the holidays. There was music playing outdoors. People were singing along. Olive the Other Reindeer. Olive was too shy to sing. She hummed. Back at her doghouse, Olive was wrapping presents and listening to the radio. She heard that same song again. Olive the Other Reindeer, went the song. Olive the Other Reindeer. Olive sang along. Olive the reindeer? Said Olive. I thought it was a dog. I must be a reindeer. It was a time of year when all reindeer reported to the North Pole to help Santa Claus. Olive put down her scissors carefully and marched out the door. She took 1 bus and then 2 buses. I know, right? Such a giant page you could put a lot of words in, and they chose 1 bus, 2 bus, red bus, blue bus. Let's keep moving. She got there just in time. Santa was checking his list for the second time. Elves were busy helping reindeer and loading the sleigh with presents for all the good girls and boys. Everyone was getting ready to go. Olive took her place. Santa noticed that there was a little dog in the lineup. Santa knew a lot about dogs, for instance. They can't fly, but as it was time to go, he decided to give Olive a chance. Pay attention to this, because if you watched Inside the Workshop, which I had no knowledge of this, Comet, the biggest reindeer, used a piece of extra ribbon to make sure Olive was tied in safe and tight. Now they were ready to go. Look at that starry sky. Olive was surprised it was so easy to fly. The other reindeer were very curious about the new helper. They looked at Olive so much, they weren't watching where they were going. Now you see why I chose Comet to be Olive's sidekick, which I had no knowledge of until now, which I'm reading the book. It's pretty cool. Crash! They flew smack into the top of a too-tall tree. Oh dear, said Santa. My sleigh is stuck in this tree. I'll have to cut it free. Olive clung to the side of the tree. She tried to fly up to help Santa, but she could not. She climbed up slowly and started chewing. Chewing sticks was something Olive could do well. Thank you, Olive, said Santa Claus as they got back on their way. They had not traveled far when Olive's nose began to twitch. Olive smelled trouble. It was a smell of gumdrop candies as they fell from the sleigh. Drop, drop, drop. Olive barked and Santa knew what to do. He steered the reindeer down and around so that all the gumdrops fell. Plop, plop, plop. Back into the toy sack. We were lucky to not lose such a single gumdrop, thought Olive. And she heard a strange sound. It was the musical note, "Eeeeee." She spun around on her string to see the night sky filled with falling flutes. Olive had to howl louder than the wind instruments. This was not music to Santa's ears. First gumdrops and now flutes, thought Santa. That tree must have torn a hole in my sled. Prepare for an emergency landing, Santa instructed. Oh boy. It's a bit hectic, especially for a first day for Olive. The sleigh landed in a snowy field full of flutes. Luckily, Olive was very good at fetching sticks. It is something that dogs love to do. Before Santa had finished patching the hole in the sleigh, Olive had returned each and every flute back to the sack. "Ho, ho, ho," said Santa. "We're ready to go." They were running late, but after a while, all the good children received their presents, and Santa and his team headed home. Wonderful. Just wonderful. They were almost home when they got caught in the dreaded North Pole fog. The reindeer slowed down until it was only the breeze that moved them along. The fog was as thick as a pillow. It made everyone feel sleepy. Then Santa remembered something about dogs. They are expert smellers. "Olive, I hate to be late for breakfast this year," he said. "Mrs. Claus has planned a parade of cookies. You can almost smell that, can't you?" Olive could smell the cookies. "Olive, won't you guide my sleigh this morning?" asked Santa. Pardon me. Olive moved to the front of the reindeer. Thanks to Olive's nose and Mrs. Claus's baking, they made it all the way back to the North Pole. All of the elves sang out and cheer. "Hooray! Hooray! Santa and the reindeer and the little doggy are back!" Back at the North Pole, it was a glorious morning. After eating lots of good food, it was time to open presents. The reindeer got jump ropes and the elves got toy trains. Santa reached into his toy sack. There was just one present left. It was for Olive. It was her very own set of reindeer antlers. They fit perfectly. Then everyone went outside to play reindeer games. The end. And the book says it too. That's a tradition you should never leave out. And such a nice tradition that Santa can allow dogs to celebrate the holidays and help them guide his sleigh, just as he did with Olive. You know, I never knew Comet was a bit of a friend with Olive until I wrote inside the workshop. But all facts aside, it is time to head off to bed. But don't you worry, because the night after tonight, there will be one more story to tune into. Until then, head off to bed with visions of sugar plums dancing in your head. Good night.